The stark white corridors of Harmony Station hummed with an eerie quietude, broken only by the rhythmic thrum of machinery, keeping the habitat operational in the unforgiving vacuum of space. Dr. Stephen Reeves strode purposefully through the pristine passageways, his footsteps echoing off the metallic walls. The station's artificial gravity tugged at him, a constant reminder of the technological marvel that allowed humans to exist in orbit around a neutron star. Stephen's heart raced, a mix of anticipation and anxiety coursing through his veins. Today marked a pivotal moment in his career, the day he'd make first contact with an entirely new form of life. The Quantides, beings of pure quantum energy, had agreed to send an ambassador to Harmony Station. Years of preparation, countless hours of theoretical modeling, and now finally the moment of truth approached. As he neared the containment chamber, Stephen caught his reflection in a polished panel. Dark circles ringed his eyes, testament to sleepless nights spent poring over data. His once neatly trimmed beard had grown unkempt, a physical manifestation of his obsession with this project. He ran a hand through his disheveled hair, a futile attempt at presentability. "You look like hell, Reeves," a gruff voice called out. Dr. Alara Chen, the station's lead physicist, approached from an adjoining corridor. Stephen managed a weak smile. "Thanks for the vote of confidence, Alara. Just the pep talk I needed before meeting an alien life form." Alara's expression softened slightly. "Sorry, I forgot. Today's the big day, isn't it? How are you holding up?" Stephen's facade cracked for a moment. "Honestly, terrified, excited, a bit nauseous." "Sounds about right," Alara nodded. "Just remember, you're the best xenoanthropologist we've got. If anyone can make this work, it's you." Her words, meant to reassure, instead sent a pang of guilt through Stephen. He was here because he was the best, yes, but also because he had nothing left to lose. The memory of the accident that claimed his family flashed unbidden through his mind. The malfunctioning shuttle, the desperate transmissions, the agonizing wait as rescue teams searched in vain. Stephen pushed the thoughts aside. "Thanks, Alara. I should get going. Can't keep our guest waiting." Alara gave him a supportive pat on the shoulder before continuing on her way. Stephen took a deep breath, steeling himself, and entered his access code into the containment chamber's control panel. The doors hissed open, revealing a cavernous room dominated by a shimmering energy field. Within the field, a being of pure light pulsed and shifted, its form constantly in flux. Stephen's breath caught in his throat at the sight of the Quantide. "Hello," Stephen said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I'm Dr. Stephen Reeves. Welcome to Harmony Station." The Quantide's energy field fluctuated, creating patterns of light that danced across the chamber. Stephen activated his neural interface, allowing the station's advanced AI to attempt a translation. A voice, oddly melodic yet clearly artificial, echoed in Stephen's mind. "Greetings, Stephen Reeves. I am designated Zeta. Your structure fascinates me." Stephen blinked, caught off guard by the directness of the statement. "Our structure? You mean the station?" "No," Zeta's energy field pulsed. "Your personal structure, the arrangement of matter that comprises your being, it is intriguing." "Oh," Stephen said, feeling a flush creep up his neck. "Well, thank you. Your form is quite fascinating as well. Would you mind if I asked you some questions about your species?" The Quantide's field rippled in what Stephen hoped was assent. He began with basic inquiries: how Quantides perceived their environment, how they communicated among themselves, their understanding of physical laws. Zeta's responses, filtered through the AI translator, were often cryptic, hinting at perceptions and experiences utterly alien to human comprehension. As the interview progressed, Stephen found himself drawn closer to the energy field containing Zeta. The Quantide's shifting form held in hypnotic allure, patterns emerging and dissolving in mesmerizing succession. "Your species relies heavily on physical contact for information gathering," Zeta observed. "Yet you maintain distance. Why?" Stephen hesitated. "The energy field is for safety purposes. We're not sure how direct contact between our species might affect either of us." Zeta's form coalesced into a rough approximation of a human silhouette. Fascinating. May we attempt contact? I wish to gather data on your physical structure directly. Warning bells sounded in Stephen's mind, but curiosity overpowered caution. I suppose a brief contact couldn't hurt, but let's start small, okay? Stephen approached the energy field, heart pounding. He extended his hand, palm out, toward Zeta's shimmering form. The Quantiad extended a tendril of energy, gently brushing against Stephen's fingertips. The effect was immediate and overwhelming. A jolt of electricity seemed to course through Stephen's entire body. He gasped, stumbling backward as goosebumps erupted across his skin. The sensation was unlike anything he'd ever experienced. A mixture of intense physical stimulation and something deeper, more profound. Extraordinary, Zeta's translated voice resonated with excitement. Your form contains such complexity, such potential for varied response. May we continue? Stephen's scientific mind warred with his instinct for self-preservation. The contact had been shocking, yes, but not painful, and the data they could gather from such interactions could revolutionize their understanding of interspecies communication. All right, Stephen agreed, his voice hoarse, but let's take it slow. We need to document everything carefully. Over the next several hours, Zeta explored the varying responses of Stephen's body to different types of energy field interactions. Each touch sent shivers through Stephen, accompanied by a kaleidoscope of sensations: tingling, warmth, pressure, even occasional flashes of color behind his closed eyelids. As the experiment progressed, Stephen found himself becoming almost giddy. The constant stimulation left him feeling lightheaded, his usual reserved demeanor crumbling under the onslaught of new experiences. Your epidermal response varies significantly depending on the location of contact, Zeta observed, a tendril of energy tracing along Stephen's forearm. Is this common among your species? Stephen laughed, the sound echoing strangely in the chamber. Yeah, you could say that. Some areas are more sensitive than others. Sensitive, Zeta repeated, the translated voice taking on a curious tone. This concept intrigues me. Show me more sensitive areas. A part of Stephen's mind recognized the potential impropriety of the request, but that voice was quickly drowned out by his scientific curiosity and the strange euphoria induced by Zeta's touch. Well, Stephen said, rolling up his sleeve, the inside of the elbow is particularly sensitive for many humans. Zeta's energy field coalesced around Stephen's exposed arm, focusing on the indicated area. The moment contact was made, Stephen gasped. The sensation was intense, sending shivers up his spine and causing his knees to buckle slightly. Fascinating, Zeta's voice thrummed with excitement. Your neural responses are incredibly complex. I detect increased heart rate, pupil dilation, and a flood of neurotransmitters. Is this pleasurable for you? Stephen's face burned. It's intense. Not unpleasant, but overwhelming. Zeta's form pulsed rapidly. I wish to explore further. Are there other areas of heightened sensitivity? Before Stephen could respond, Zeta's energy field expanded, enveloping him entirely. The sensation was indescribable, as if every nerve ending in his body was being gently stimulated simultaneously. Stephen's vision blurred, his mind reeling from the overload of sensory input. And then something extraordinary happened. The world around Stephen seemed to shimmer and shift. For a brief moment, he found himself somewhere else entirely, a sunlit park, children laughing in the distance. He recognized the scene with a jolt of pain and longing. It was the last place he'd been with his family before the accident. As quickly as it appeared, the vision vanished. Stephen found himself back in the containment chamber, gasping for breath. Zeta's energy field had retreated, pulsing with what seemed like concern. What was that? Stephen panted, his mind racing to process what he'd experienced. Zeta's translated voice held a note of confusion. I detected a sudden spike in neural activity. Did you experience something unusual? Stephen struggled to find words to describe the vision. I saw somewhere else. A memory, but it felt real. Like I was actually there. Zeta's form coalesced into a tight ball of pulsing energy. Intriguing. It seems our interaction has had unexpected effects on your perception of reality. This requires further study. Still reeling from the experience, Stephen nodded absently. The implications of what had just occurred were staggering. Had Zeta's touch somehow allowed him to perceive a parallel reality? Or was it simply a vivid hallucination brought on by sensory overload? We should continue our experiments, Stephen said, his scientific curiosity overriding his shock. But we need to proceed with caution, and we need to document everything meticulously. Zeta's form rippled in what Stephen interpreted as agreement. Yes, there is much to learn from each other. Your species' capacity for varied experience is remarkable. I look forward to exploring it further. As Stephen began setting up more formal monitoring equipment, his mind raced with possibilities. This interaction with Zeta had already far exceeded his wildest expectations. If mere physical contact could induce visions of other realities, what other wonders might they uncover? For the first time since losing his family, Stephen felt a spark of genuine excitement for the future. Whatever lay ahead in his research with Zeta, he knew it would be unlike anything humanity had ever experienced before. The containment chamber's door slid open, startling Stephen from his thoughts. Dr. Alara Chen entered, her eyes widening as she took in the scene. Stephen, disheveled and flushed, standing far too close to the shimmering form of Zeta. "What the hell is going on in here?" Alara demanded, her voice sharp with concern and anger. Stephen turned to her, a manic grin spreading across his face. "Alara, you won't believe what we've discovered. We're on the brink of something revolutionary." Alara's eyes narrowed, darting between Stephen and the pulsing form of Zeta. "Stephen, step away from the containment field. Now." The urgency in her voice cut through Stephen's euphoria. He took a stumbling step backward, suddenly aware of how compromised he must appear. "It's not what you think," he began, but Alara cut him off with a raised hand. "Save it," she snapped. "We're shutting this down until we can do a full evaluation of what's happened here. And you," she pointed at Stephen, "are going straight to medical for a full workup." As Alara began inputting override codes to reinforce Zeta's containment field, Stephen felt a wave of panic. They couldn't stop now, not when they were on the verge of a breakthrough that could change everything. "Wait," he pleaded, turning back to Zeta. "We need to continue the experiments. There's so much more to learn." Zeta's form pulsed rapidly, the translated voice tinged with what sounded like regret. "I fear we have caused distress, Stephen Reeves. Perhaps it is best if we pause our interactions for now." Stephen wanted to argue, to explain the importance of what they discovered, but the room suddenly tilted around him. The accumulated stress and sensory overload of the past hours caught up with him all at once. As his vision blurred and his knees buckled, Stephen's last conscious thought was of the fleeting vision he'd experienced, his family, whole and happy, in a reality just beyond his reach. The last thing he heard before darkness claimed him was Alara's voice, tight with worry, calling for a medical team. As consciousness slipped away, Stephen couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning of a journey that would challenge everything he thought he knew about reality, consciousness, and the very nature of existence itself. The harsh fluorescent lights of Harmony Station's medical bay assaulted Stephen's eyes as he regained consciousness. He blinked, disoriented, the sterile smell of antiseptic filling his nostrils. As his vision cleared, he saw Dr. Alara Chen standing over him, her face a mask of concern and frustration. "Welcome back to the land of the living, Reeves," Alara said, her tone clipped. "Care to explain what the hell happened in that containment chamber?" Stephen struggled to sit up, his head pounding. "How long was I out?" 12 hours, Alara replied. "Now answer the question." The events leading up to his collapse came rushing back. The experiments with Zeta, the overwhelming sensations, the brief glimpse of something else. Stephen's heart raced at the memory. "We made a breakthrough, Alara," he said, unable to keep the excitement from his voice. "Zeta's touch, it did something to my perception. I think I saw another reality." Alara's eyebrows shot up. "Another reality?" "Stephen, you were experiencing severe neurological distress. Whatever you saw was likely a hallucination brought on by sensory overload." Stephen shook his head vehemently, instantly regretting the motion as a wave of nausea washed over him. "No, it was more than that. It felt real, and Zeta sensed it too." We need to continue the experiments to understand what's happening. Ilara's expression hardened. Absolutely not. The board is already questioning the safety of this project. There have been unexplained equipment malfunctions all over the station since the Quantide arrived. Some are suggesting we terminate the study entirely. Panic gripped Stephen. We can't do that. We're on the verge of something monumental here. Zeta isn't just studying us, Ilara. It's trying to understand the very nature of human consciousness. And in the process, we might unlock secrets about the multiverse itself. Listen to yourself, Stephen, Ilara said, her voice softening slightly. You're not thinking clearly. Whatever happened in that chamber affected you deeply. You need time to recover, to process everything objectively. Stephen swung his legs over the side of the bed, ignoring the dizziness that threatened to overwhelm him. I don't have time. Every moment we waste is a missed opportunity. I need to see Zeta again. Ilara placed a firm hand on his shoulder, pushing him back onto the bed. You're not going anywhere, doctor's orders, and Zeta's off limits until we complete a full investigation into what happened. Frustration boiled within Stephen. They didn't understand. How could they? They hadn't experienced what he had. The connection he'd forged with Zeta went beyond mere scientific curiosity. It was something else, something he couldn't quite define, but knew was vitally important. Fine, he said, feigning resignation. I'll rest. But I want access to all the data we collected during the experiment, and I want to be kept in the loop about any decisions regarding Zeta's status on the station. Ilara nodded, relief evident in her posture. That's reasonable. I'll have the data sent to your personal terminal. But Stephen, her tone grew serious, promise me you won't do anything rash. Your health and safety come first. Stephen managed a weak smile. Of course. You know me. Always the cautious scientist. Ilara snorted, clearly unconvinced, but left the medical bay without further argument. The moment the door slid shut behind her, Stephen was on his feet, fighting against the vertigo that threatened to send him crashing to the floor. He stumbled to the nearby computer terminal, fingers flying over the keyboard as he accessed the station's security systems. Years of working on classified projects had taught him a thing or two about bypassing protocols. Within minutes, he had a live feed of Zeta's containment chamber on the screen. The Quantide's form pulsed erratically within the energy field, patterns shifting in ways that seemed almost distressed. Stephen's heart clenched at the sight. He needed to get back to that chamber, to continue their work, to understand the connection that had formed between them. Over the next few days, Stephen threw himself into analyzing the data from their experiment, all while plotting ways to regain access to Zeta. He pored over readouts of his own neural activity, cross-referencing them with the fluctuations in Zeta's energy field. Patterns emerged, hinting at a synchronization between their consciousnesses during moments of physical contact. But it wasn't just the data that consumed Stephen's thoughts. He found himself replaying every interaction with Zeta in his mind, dwelling on the alien's curiosity, its eagerness to understand human experience. There was an innocence to Zeta's explorations that Stephen found oddly endearing. As he worked, strange occurrences plagued the station. Lights flickered unexpectedly, gravity plates malfunctioned, and communication systems experienced mysterious interruptions. Whispers spread among the crew, theories ranging from mundane equipment failure to wild speculation about the Quantide's influence. Stephen knew he should be concerned, but he couldn't shake the feeling that these incidents were somehow connected to his experiences with Zeta. Each malfunction seemed to coincide with moments when his thoughts were most intensely focused on the alien entity. On the fifth day of his imposed isolation, an alert flashed across Stephen's terminal. The board had convened an emergency meeting to discuss the future of the Quantide project. His heart raced as he hacked into the live feed, watching as station administrators debated Zeta's fate. The risk is too great, Admiral Voss, the station's commanding officer argued. We cannot jeopardize the safety of this entire installation for the sake of one experiment. Dr. Ilara Chen's voice cut through the debate. With all due respect, Admiral, we're on the verge of a breakthrough here. Dr. Reeves's initial findings suggest possibilities we've only dreamed of. We can't abandon this opportunity out of an abundance of caution. Caution? Voss scoffed. We have unexplained system failures across the station. Dr. Reeves himself collapsed after prolonged exposure to the entity. This isn't caution, it's common sense. The discussion continued, growing heated. Stephen's fingers dug into the arms of his chair as he listened, a sick feeling growing in the pit of his stomach. They were going to shut it all down, to send Zeta away, or worse. He couldn't let that happen. With newfound determination, Stephen disabled the monitoring devices in his quarters and slipped out into the corridor. The station's night cycle was in full effect, the hallways dimly lit and largely deserted. He made his way towards the containment chamber, using maintenance access ways to avoid security checkpoints. As he neared his destination, a familiar tingling sensation washed over him. Zeta was close. He could feel it. The air seemed to crackle with potential energy, setting Stephen's nerves on edge. He rounded a corner and froze. Dr. Alara Chen stood outside the containment chamber, engaged in heated conversation with two security officers. "I don't care what the Admiral says," Ilara hissed. "No one enters this chamber without my express permission. Is that clear?" The officers nodded reluctantly and took up positions on either side of the door. Ilara's shoulders sagged as she turned away, fatigue evident in every line of her body. As she walked away, her eyes met Stephen's, widening in shock. For a moment, neither moved. Then, to Stephen's surprise, Ilara's expression softened. She glanced meaningfully at the security officers, then back to Stephen, before continuing down the corridor without a word. Understanding dawned. Ilara was giving him a chance, one last opportunity to prove the value of their work with Zeta. Stephen's respect for his colleague deepened immeasurably in that moment. He waited until Ilara had disappeared from view before approaching the containment chamber. The security officers tensed at his approach. "Dr. Reeves," one began, "I'm sorry, but we have strict orders. To prevent unauthorized access, I know," Stephen interrupted smoothly. "But surely those orders don't apply to the lead researcher on this project." He held up his identification badge, praying the officers wouldn't look too closely at the security clearance level. The guards exchanged uncertain glances. Stephen pressed his advantage. "Look, I just need to run a few quick diagnostics. 10 minutes tops. You can stand right outside the whole time." After a moment's hesitation, the senior officer nodded. 10 minutes, doctor. Not a second more." Relief flooded through Stephen as the containment chamber door slid open. He stepped inside, heart pounding, as the entrance sealed behind him. Zeta's form pulsed and shifted within the energy field, patterns growing more agitated as Stephen approached. The alien's translated voice filled his mind, tinged with what sounded like concern and excitement. "Stephen Reeves, your return was uncertain. Have you recovered from our previous interaction?" A smile tugged at Stephen's lips. "I'm fine, Zeta, but we don't have much time. They're planning to shut down the experiment, to send you away." Zeta's form contracted, energy coalescing into a tighter ball. "This outcome is suboptimal. Our work is incomplete. There is still much to learn." "I know," Stephen said, stepping closer to the energy field. "That's why I'm here. We need to continue our experiments, to show them the importance of what we've discovered." He reached out, hand hovering just beyond the shimmering barrier separating them. "Are you willing to try again?" Zeta's form elongated, a tendril of energy extending towards Stephen's outstretched hand. "The risk of negative consequences remains high. Are you certain this is wise, Stephen Reeves?" Stephen's breath caught in his throat. There was something in the way Zeta said his name, a warmth that transcended the artificial translation. In that moment, he realized that his motivation went beyond scientific curiosity. He cared for this alien being in a way he couldn't quite define. "I'm certain," he said softly. "Whatever happens, we're in this together." With those words, Stephen pressed his palm against the energy field. It yielded like a membrane, allowing his hand to pass through. The moment Zeta's energy made contact with his skin, the world exploded into sensation. Colors he had no names for burst behind his eyelids. His body hummed with energy, every nerve ending singing with input. And then, just as before, reality seemed to shift. Stephen found himself standing in a field of swaying grass, a warm breeze caressing his face. In the distance, he saw a familiar figure, himself but younger, unburdened by grief and loss. And beside that other self stood his wife and daughter, alive and laughing. Tears stung Stephen's eyes as he watched the scene unfold. This was more than a mere vision or hallucination. Somehow he knew with absolute certainty that he was perceiving another reality, a world where tragedy had never struck. Fascinating, Zeta's voice echoed in his mind, tinged with awe. Your consciousness is interfacing with a parallel quantum state. How do you perceive this experience, Stephen Reeves? Stephen struggled to find words to describe the maelstrom of emotions coursing through him. It's, overwhelming, beautiful and painful all at once. Zeta, how is this possible? The scene before him shimmered, reality bending like light through a prism. For a brief moment, Stephen saw not just one alternate version of himself, but dozens. Infinite possibilities stretching out across the multiverse. Your species exists in a state of quantum superposition, Zeta explained, its energy intertwining with Stephen's consciousness. My touch appears to collapse the waveform, allowing you to perceive alternate states of being. This is unexpected, exhilarating. Stephen's scientific mind raced to process this information, even as his heart ached with longing for the life he saw before him. Can we interact with these other realities? As if in response to his question, the other Stephen turned, eyes widening in shock as they met his gaze. Recognition dawned on his alternate self's face, followed by a look of profound understanding and compassion. Oh God, Stephen breathed, overwhelmed by the implications. Zeta, do you realize what this means? We're not just observing parallel worlds, we're creating a bridge between them. Excitement surged through their connected consciousnesses. Zeta's energy pulsed rapidly, patterns shifting in what Stephen now recognized as joy. The possibilities are infinite. Stephen Reeves, we stand at the threshold of a new understanding of reality itself. The moment was shattered by a harsh voice, distorted as if coming from a great distance. Dr. Reeves, step away from the containment field immediately. Reality snapped back into focus with dizzying speed. Stephen found himself back in the containment chamber, hands still pressed against Zeta's energy field. Admiral Voss stood in the doorway, flanked by security officers with weapons drawn. Stephen's mind raced, trying to process everything he'd experienced while formulating a defense of their work. But before he could speak, alarms blared throughout the station. Emergency lights bathed the chamber in pulsing red as Voss's communicator crackled to life. Admiral, a panicked voice called out, we're detecting massive energy fluctuations throughout the station. Structural integrity is failing in multiple sections. Sir, we're looking at a potential cascade failure of all systems. Voss's face paled as he turned to Stephen, fury and fear warring in his eyes. What have you done, Reeves? Stephen looked from the Admiral to Zeta, realization dawning. Their experiment had worked. Too well. In bridging realities, they had inadvertently destabilized the very fabric of space-time around Harmony Station. As klaxons wailed and the station shuddered around them, Stephen made a decision that would alter the course of his life and potentially the fate of multiple realities. Zeta, he said, voice steady despite the chaos erupting around them, we need to go, now. The Quantid's energy field expanded, enveloping Stephen completely. As security officers rushed forward, weapons raised, Stephen felt reality bend around him once more. The last thing he saw before the world dissolved into quantum possibility was Dr. Alara Chin's face, a mix of fear and understanding in her eyes. Then in a flash of impossible light, Stephen Reeves and Zeta vanished, leaving behind a station in crisis and a universe forever changed by their discovery. The world dissolved into a kaleidoscope of quantum possibilities, Stephen's consciousness stretching across multiple realities before snapping back into focus. He found himself in a dimly lit maintenance tunnel deep within Harmony Station, the distant wail of alarms barely audible through the thick bulkheads. Zeta's energy form pulsed beside him, casting an ethereal glow on the corroded metal walls. That was intense, Stephen gasped, his mind reeling from the experience of quantum teleportation. Are you okay, Zeta? The Quantid's form rippled, patterns shifting in what Stephen had come to recognize as concern. My integrity remains intact, Stephen Reeves. However, the strain of transporting a physical being through quantum space was substantial. I require time to recuperate. Stephen nodded, his scientific curiosity momentarily overriding their dire situation. The fact that you managed it at all is incredible. The implications for physics, for our understanding of space-time itself. A distant clang of metal on metal cut him short. Security teams would be scouring every inch of the station for them. They needed to move. We can discuss the scientific ramifications later, Stephen said, his voice low. Right now, we need to find a safe place to hide and figure out our next move. They made their way through the labyrinthine tunnels of Harmony's lower levels, Stephen's knowledge of the station's layout guiding them away from populated areas. As they traveled, Zeta's energy field occasionally brushed against Stephen, sending shivers of awareness through his body. Each contact seemed to deepen their connection, allowing Stephen to sense the alien's emotions with increasing clarity. "You're worried," Stephen observed as they paused at a junction to catch their breath. "Not just about our situation, but something else?" Zeta's form coalesced into a rough approximation of a human silhouette, a gesture Stephen had come to associate with the alien's attempts at more direct communication. "Your perception grows more acute, Stephen Reeves. Yes, I am concerned. Our actions have had unforeseen consequences. The fabric of reality in this sector of space has been compromised." Stephen's brow furrowed. "You mean the malfunctions on the station? But those started before our experiment." "Correct." Zeta's translated voice resonated with a mix of curiosity and regret. "I believe the instabilities were already present, caused by other forces. Our interaction merely exacerbated the situation." Before Stephen could probe further, the sound of approaching footsteps echoed through the tunnel. They pressed themselves into a shadowy alcove, Stephen's heart pounding as a security team passed within inches of their hiding spot. Once the danger had passed, they continued their journey deeper into the bowels of the station. As they traveled, Stephen found himself opening up to Zeta, sharing stories of his life, his lost family, and his hopes for their research. In turn, the Quantid attempted to explain concepts of its existence that stretched the limits of human comprehension. "So you exist in a state of quantum superposition?" Stephen asked as they settled into an abandoned storage bay, finally feeling safe enough to rest. "You're simultaneously in multiple realities at once?" Zeta's form shimmered, tendrils of energy reaching out to gently caress Stephen's face. The touch sent a jolt of electricity through him, along with a flood of abstract concepts and emotions. "Not precisely. It would be more accurate to say that I am the intersection of infinite possibilities. Your limited perception interprets this as a singular form, but I am more." Stephen leaned into the touch, marveling at the complexity of sensations it evoked. "It's beautiful," he murmured. "You're beautiful, Zeta. I wish I could perceive you fully, to understand you the way you seem to understand me." The alien's energy pulsed with what Stephen sensed was a mixture of affection and sorrow. "Your mind is not designed for such perception, Stephen Reeves. The strain could destroy you, but perhaps, with time and careful exploration, we could expand your consciousness." Their moment of connection was shattered by a violent tremor that shook the entire station. Alarms blared with renewed urgency as the lights flickered and died, plunging them into darkness broken only by Zeta's ethereal glow. "What's happening?" Stephen demanded, struggling to his feet as the floor beneath them bucked and heaved. Zeta's form contracted, patterns shifting rapidly in clear distress. "The instabilities are growing worse. The barrier between realities is weakening. Stephen Reeves, I fear our presence here may be accelerating the process." Another tremor rocked the station, stronger than the last. In the distance, Stephen heard the screech of tearing metal and the hiss of escaping atmosphere. The situation was deteriorating rapidly. "We need to do something," Stephen said, his mind racing. "If we're the catalyst for this instability, maybe we can also be the solution. Zeta, is there any way we can use our connection, our ability to bridge realities, to stabilize things?" The Quantid's energy field expanded, enveloping Stephen in a cocoon of warmth and tingling sensation. "It is possible but dangerous. To effect change on this scale would require a level of synchronization we have not yet achieved. The strain on your physical form would be significant." Stephen set his jaw, determination overriding fear. "We don't have a choice. Thousands of lives are at stake, not to mention the potential damage to the fabric of space-time itself. Whatever the risk, we have to try. Zeta's form pulsed with what Stephen now recognized as admiration. Your courage is admirable, Stephen Reeves. Very well. We shall attempt to stabilize the local quantum field. But be warned, the process will open your mind to the multiverse in ways you cannot imagine. Are you prepared for such an experience? Stephen took a deep breath, steadying himself. I'm ready. What do we do? Relax your mind, Zeta instructed, its energy field intensifying around Stephen. Open yourself to me completely. Let go of your perception of singular reality. Embrace the infinite. Stephen closed his eyes, focusing on the sensation of Zeta's energy permeating his being. He felt his consciousness expanding, stretching beyond the confines of his physical form. The world around him seemed to dissolve, replaced by a vast tapestry of possibilities. He saw himself, not as a single entity, but as an infinite array of potential selves spread across countless realities. In one, he was still on Earth, having never joined the Harmony Project. In another, he had died in the same accident that claimed his family. And in yet another, Stephen gasped as he perceived a reality where his wife and daughter still lived. He saw himself, older and gray-haired, surrounded by grandchildren. The longing and pain that welled up threatened to overwhelm him. Focus, Stephen Reeves. Zeta's voice echoed through the multiplicity of his consciousness. Do not lose yourself in possibility. We must find the nexus point, the intersection of realities where we can exert influence. With tremendous effort, Stephen tore his attention away from the tantalizing glimpses of alternate lives. He focused instead on the underlying structure of reality itself, perceiving the quantum fields that connected all possibilities. There, at the heart of the maelstrom, he saw the source of the instability, a tear in the fabric of space-time, leaking energy and distorting the local quantum field. And beyond the tear, Stephen perceived something that chilled him to his core. Zeta, he called out, his voice seeming to echo across dimensions. The instability, it's not natural. Someone or something is deliberately weakening the barriers between realities. The Quantide's consciousness intertwined with Stephen's, allowing him to perceive the situation with greater clarity. You are correct, Stephen Reeves. The damage is the result of deliberate action, but the intent behind it remains unclear. As they observed the tear, Stephen became aware of other presences, vast alien intelligences moving through the quantum foam. Were these the beings responsible for the damage? Or were they, like Stephen and Zeta, drawn to investigate the disturbance? We cannot confront these entities directly, Zeta warned. Our priority must be sealing the breach and stabilizing local spacetime. Are you prepared to proceed? Stephen steeled himself, pushing aside his fear and curiosity about the mysterious intelligences. I'm ready. Tell me what to do. Under Zeta's guidance, Stephen focused his newly expanded consciousness on the tear in reality. He envisioned the quantum fields knitting back together, the leak of energy slowing to a trickle and then stopping altogether. Zeta's energy intertwined with his own, amplifying his efforts and providing the exotic matter needed to patch the hole in spacetime. The process was agonizing. Stephen felt as if his very essence was being stretched to its breaking point, his mind struggling to encompass realities far beyond human comprehension. Several times he nearly lost himself in the infinite possibilities swirling around him. But always, Zeta was there, a constant presence anchoring him to his core self. The alien's touch, both physical and mental, provided the strength Stephen needed to persevere. After what felt like an eternity, but may have been only moments, Stephen sensed the tear beginning to close. The chaotic swirl of quantum energies calmed, reality reasserting itself around them. As the breach sealed, Stephen felt his consciousness snap back to his physical body with brutal force. He collapsed to the floor of the storage bay, every nerve ending screaming in protest. Zeta's energy field enveloped him, soothing the worst of the pain. You have done it, Stephen Reeves. The alien's voice resonated with pride and affection. The local quantum field has been stabilized. Harmony Station and this sector of space are safe. For now. Stephen struggled to sit up, his mind reeling from the experience. For now? You mean this could happen again? Zeta's form shimmered with concern. The underlying cause remains unaddressed. Whatever forces are attempting to breach the walls between realities, they are unlikely to cease their efforts. We have merely delayed the inevitable. Before Stephen could respond, the storage bay door slid open with a hiss. Dr. Alara Chen stood in the entrance, flanked by security officers with weapons drawn. Her eyes widened as she took in the scene before her. Stephen, disheveled and clearly disoriented, enveloped in Zeta's glowing energy field. "Stand down," Alara barked at the security team before addressing Stephen directly. "Dr. Reeves, are you all right? What happened here?" Stephen struggled to his feet, leaning heavily on a nearby crate for support. "It's a long story, Alara, but the short version is, we just saved reality as we know it, and we've got a lot more work to do." Alara's eyebrows shot up, but to her credit, she didn't dismiss his claim outright. "I think you'd better start from the beginning. But first, let's get you to medical. You look like you've been through hell." As they made their way through the now stabilized corridors of Harmony Station, Stephen felt Zeta's presence like a comforting warmth at his side. The bond between them had deepened beyond anything he could have imagined, transcending the boundaries of species and even reality itself. Whatever challenges lay ahead, whatever mysterious forces threatened the stability of the multiverse, Stephen knew that he and Zeta would face them together. Their unique connection had not only saved countless lives, but had opened up new frontiers of scientific discovery and personal growth. As they approached the medical bay, Stephen's mind buzzed with possibilities. How would humanity react to the knowledge that reality itself was under threat? What role would he and Zeta play in the conflicts to come? And perhaps most intriguingly, how would their relationship continue to evolve as they explored the depths of consciousness and the nature of existence? One thing was certain: nothing would ever be the same again. And despite the dangers and uncertainties that lay ahead, Stephen couldn't help but feel a surge of excitement. With Zeta by his side, he was ready to embrace the infinite possibilities of their shared future.